Good afternoon. Bit of a different experience for all of us, I suppose, and I think welcome from my side. Maybe by way of introduction, very quickly, my name is Colin Erasmus. Been at Microsoft for many, many years. Recently taken over this new portfolio, and I would typically say to an audience, please, if you have questions, please put your hand up. My understanding is we're running an SMS line, so if there are any specific questions, please SMS those questions to the line. We'll try and answer them now, or we'll get back to you guys afterwards. I think the very first thing for me is Microsoft 365. What is it? You know, we have so many people that have come to us and said, we think it really is where we've taken Windows and Office and put it together in a single package. That's not really what it is. It really is what it says on the screen there. We believe it's the world's productivity cloud. That really is what Microsoft 365 is. And we're going to spend, you'll see on the agenda, there's 2 sessions. We're going to put those 2 sessions together, and we're going to spend about 50 minutes to an hour together explaining the concept of Microsoft 365 and what we mean by the world's productivity cloud. So let me go for it. I'm also going to do some online demos. Let's hope the demo gods are good to us. We're going to do demos as much as we can, also to make this a little bit more interactive. So the first thing I will say, you know, these are 2 words that we do overuse quite a bit, digital transformation, but I have to start here. And I also have to give you 1 or 2 bits of strategic or information to actually explain to you what is really happening. And the very first thing I will say is that if we look at digital transformation, I think the very first thing that says to us that companies are trying to do this, and I think more so with what is going on in the world at the moment, is we are seeing a lot of organizations that we typically wouldn't deem tech organizations actually starting to hire developers. And in fact, the stats today in both South Africa and globally is that we have more non-tech companies hiring developers today than technology companies. And this says to us that our organizations, our companies out there are starting to look for ways to digitally transform their business and to become and remain competitive. And that's critical for us. And that's also one of the reasons why we developed Microsoft 365 was to give these organizations the ability to do it. And I'm going to explain that to you in a second. So here's another thing, you know, if you really want a definition for Microsoft 365, the world's productivity cloud, it really is a set of online services, so cloud services that Microsoft has put together to actually help people digitally transform their business. And that really is what it is at the end of the day. And I want to take a look at this. And in order to explain it, there's 2 ways we explain productivity. The one is around personal productivity, and the other is around organizational productivity. So let's first look at personal productivity. And I'll talk about 2 major trends that are driving personal productivity. And at the end of the day, if we think about ourselves as individuals, it's really about how do we save time, how do we save money potentially, how do we get more done in our week or during the day. And if you think about the word productivity, Microsoft is fairly synonymous. If you take a look at things like Outlook, PowerPoint, Excel, we've been doing this for years. Most people use these products. But really, we wanted to take a step further. There are 2 major factors or 2 major trends around personal productivity that is really taking it to the next level. The first I want to explain to you is AI, is artificial intelligence. Now, we sometimes use this word, I think, a little bit too much, and there's a major difference between artificial intelligence and machine learning, and we need to understand that difference. I'm actually going to show you 1 or 2 demos of how artificial intelligence are actually starting to play a role in personal productivity. And I'm going to do something stupid like show you guys a PowerPoint presentation demo. And I love doing it because a lot of people don't know they have the ability to do this already, but then also couple it back to personal productivity and what it actually means. So that's the first thing, the first major trend. The second major trend around personal productivity is what we call the frontline or the first-line worker. And that really is the person, especially in South Africa, we've got a big retail industry. And that really is the person that is at the coalface, the people that are packing the shelves, the people that are ringing up, people that typically wouldn't have technology available to them all in the past. We believe that there's a major trend where we're starting to look at how we enable these sort of frontline or first-line workers with technology. And that's the other major trend that we're starting to see. Now, organizational productivity is something very interesting. Until we had the cloud, we really spoke about personal productivity. And I'm going to do 1 or 2 demos for you, something called workplace analytics and my analytics, where I'm actually going to show you what organizational productivity looks like and how, by people doing things, we are starting to collect this information. And let me explain this to you. And I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Microsoft Graph, but that really is what this is. So let's explain it. So essentially, we give people experiences on a daily basis. Excel, once again, PowerPoint, Outlook, Word. These are experiences that we give people. as we give people these experiences, they generate data or content. Now, where this has had a major change for us with the invention of the cloud or cloud coming to being is that as we're giving people these experiences and as we're generating content and data, we're also generating and capturing how people are creating this content and interacting with their organizations and interacting with other people. So as opposed to just creating content now, what we're now starting to do is we're starting to figure out how data, how people, how organizations are interlinked. And we're collecting that data and that information. Now, that concept is called the Microsoft Graph, and it is mostly one of the most valuable pieces of data that we give to an organization today. And by doing that, we are able to have a look at things like the experiences that we give our people, how productive they are, and also starting to have a look at how we change our culture of our organizations to better fit what we're after as a company. So that's Microsoft Graph, and that's really how this fits together. And we'll go through a couple of examples of some products and what I mean by this, and actually have a look at some demos. So let's just go to the next slide. So the best example of personal productivity is mostly Microsoft Teams. And we're going to spend a little bit of time today looking at Microsoft Teams and looking at what we are able to give a person today and give an organization today. The other thing that it gives us the availability to do is to define what we call a productivity score. So we are able today, through this Microsoft Graph that I spoke about, to be able to give somebody a productivity score, i.e. how productive are you, how much time do you spend doing email, how much time do you spend interacting with people, how much time do you spend in meetings. And once again, in a couple of minutes, I'll actually show you a demo on this. So before I actually do this, it is worth mentioning that this is something that we pride ourselves on at Microsoft, is that we run on cloud. So Microsoft on trust. So Microsoft 365 runs on trust. There are 4 sections to trust that we look at very specifically. The first one being security. I mean, we're under no illusions that attacks are getting a lot more sophisticated today. If we look at phishing attacks, spear phishing, nowadays these things are getting very, very complex and very, very professional. The second one is compliance. Now, living in South Africa, a lot of us do business with Europe. GDPR from a compliance point of view becomes critical for us. The same thing with the pending legalization or the impending POPI legalities that will be made available that we're going to have to comply with. The next one is identity. Now, that for us is the basis of trust. We need to make sure that we are able to identify people in order to give them a trusted relationship with what we are doing. And then the last one is privacy. Now, privacy is also just as interesting for us now. For those of you that have been watching the news, you may have noticed that Microsoft South Africa recently won the best employer to work for. One of the major factors of us winning that award was actually privacy. But privacy with our partners, with our customers, but more so for our internal employees. A lot of people forget about this and actually ignore that factor. So look, I think this is the cornerstone of the way we run our cloud. We truly believe that we run on trust. Okay, so you will see that we're going to look at personal productivity the way we spoke about it, and organizational productivity. We'll spend a lot more time on the personal productivity front. And I'm going to let these videos play in the back end, and then I'm actually going to escape and actually do a bit of a demo. So if we look at the Teams overview, for those of you who've never used Teams, this really is a collaborative workspace that we've now enabled for organizations and teams to take benefit from. And as you see the video running, you'll see, for instance, in the Teams thing that you saw there, this is where we define channels. So if you have a team and you're working on a project, you can define a channel. You can define people that belong to that channel. And you can see as that went down, and the demo will be a little bit clearer, you have a calendaring function. So the intent for us at the end of the day, and you also have files and you have calls. You have the ability from a Teams perspective to actually do telephony breakout as well. So you've got the ability to have Teams do your collaboration and your communication in one package. So let's just go a step further here. And I'm going to show you 1 or 2 interesting demos. We'll let these things run. I'll tell you about them, and then we'll actually run the demo. Now, the very first thing is inline translation. Now, for a lot of us today, this may seem like quite a silly feature, if you want to call it that. But let's take a look at Microsoft. Microsoft is a global organization, 150,000 odd employees globally. And just by the pure makeup of Microsoft today, I myself, being an employee there, need to work with people around the world. not all these people potentially speak English. And this is a feature set that we use quite a bit inside of Microsoft when we are actually working with colleagues abroad that potentially don't speak English or don't speak the same language. So inline translation actually allows us to do on-the-fly translations, and I'll actually show you that. Now, recording meetings is also very critical. As you use Teams and as you get a couple of people together, or as you get a town hall meeting together, so a one-to-many type event, you now have the ability to record these sessions so people can go back and have a look. As you record, this automatically now goes up to Microsoft's streaming platform called Stream. And once again, I'm going to do a demo of that because I know all of you guys use YouTube, almost 100% convinced. And I know the two cameramen that are now looking at me use YouTube as well, and they take that slide at the bottom and they look for exactly what they want. And I'm getting a laugh out of them, which is good, which means that I'm not talking nonsense. And I want to show you what Stream has actually done to enable this video content. Joining meetings. So we have the ability straight out of Teams to join meetings. And remember, the intent of Teams is that somebody doesn't leave the Teams experience. Now, I want to show you something that's going on the screen at the moment. The one thing that we have allowed to now do is to actually blur the background, if you look at the screen at the moment, behind you. So if you're doing a video conference, you've got the ability to blur the background. Now, not only do you have that, you've actually got the ability to actually change those backgrounds now. Now, why did we do this, other than a bit of fun? The reason was privacy. So in a lot of instances today, when you're doing a video conference, you may actually have your back towards another colleague. And privacy has become so key for us that we want the ability to actually give you a private environment even though you're actually on a teleconference. Now, I wouldn't suggest that one inside of Microsoft. You may get some emails from our CEO, but this is the intent. And maybe just to give you a practical example, what Microsoft does is we hire vendors, so we have vendors that work for us. In order for a vendor to work for us and collect data, they need to have a PII certification from us. And one of the things that we actually check with these vendors is that when we dial them or phone them, that we don't have the ability to see any personally identifiable information on their backgrounds or when we phone them and do a video call. So it really is a feature that has come from a privacy standpoint. Magic Whiteboard. So moving on, we have so many people saying to us, but Colin, Teams is an interesting experience because it's an online experience. And we still have people that love to draw. Now I'm like this, I've got to admit that. If I get into a room, I love to draw. The digital or the whiteboard is a whiteboard that you can use within a Teams calling environment where you can actually all contribute onto a virtual whiteboard. So once again, we're taking something out of the physical world that people are comfortable and people love doing and actually bringing it into the virtual world from a Teams perspective. Sharing to Teams. Now let me ask the question. Most of you today, when you want to send a file, you'll attach the file in an Outlook message and you'll send it to 10 people. Now, the reality is once we do that, we now have 11 copies of this file floating around. So you've used more bandwidth than what you most probably would have liked. And the other thing is you now have it in your Outlook. So if somebody goes looking for that email, they have to go searching for the email to find the document. And the other thing is that you now have 11 versions of the truth. So you've got the one that you've sent, plus the 10 copies that you've sent out there. What Teams does, it gives you the ability to take that document, so be it an email, and put it into Teams as a conversation, and everyone then can start the conversation around the email as an example. Same thing, I'll show you a demo on that in 1 second. But it really limits people having to find things in Outlook and has a central place where everybody can find things automatically. And that really is the intent of Teams. So just so that I make sure I explain this thing properly, is that it really is a common workplace where everyone can work together, files are kept in the central place, and comments are kept in the central place. You can get to your files, you can have video conferences, and you can have teleconference straight out of Teams. Right, last thing I'll do from playing a video point of view is adding to Teams or adding tabs to Teams. So a lot of us don't just use what we have in Outlook or what we have around us. We use other applications. So social media applications, Power BI applications, and typically if we would have a Teams environment today where we didn't allow those add-ins, you'd once again have to leave Teams and go and find those. What we've given you the ability to do is add those sorts of applications directly into the Teams UI. So you can have everything together in one place. All right, so let's do this. Enough talking? And let's try a bit of a demo. Now, this is a live demo, so I hope the demo gods are okay with us. And the other thing is this is my live Teams account. So this is my account at Microsoft, so please excuse if anybody's shouting at me about not giving them anything on time. These are the way live demos go. So let's have a look at the first thing. Let's actually have a look at Teams navigation. So what you see at the moment on the left-hand side of the screen is the navigation bar. Now, everything that you see here are actual channels that I've created. These are either projects I'm working on or projects that other people that are working on that I'm part of, and so you can see them. Now, there's a lot of Teams channels that you see here, and I'm going to go through the demo one in a second to show you what I mean and all these videos that we've looked at. So the first thing that you will see is you will see a lot of channels. So if you're in a medium-sized organization or even a small organization, there are going to be a lot of channels, a lot of projects that you work on. The first thing I will say to you is that here's where the AI starts becoming important. You'll see at the bottom that there are hidden channels. So these are channels that are now hidden for me because I don't go to those chats and those channels very often. And the other thing that I will say, now I know this is difficult and very hard and everybody's sitting there, is you can actually leave a channel. Like a WhatsApp group, I know it's difficult to leave them sometimes, but you can actually leave a channel if you wanted to, so you can go and curate this experience. But there you can see all the channels that I belong to. Now let's go and have a look at one of them specifically. It's this one here called Custom Teams Demo. Now, what I want to do is scroll up. Remember what I said to you is that we can start a conversation with an email. So one of my colleagues has actually done exactly that. There's the email. She's actually put the email into the Teams channel. So you can see the channel there. She's put the email into the channel, and we've got a couple of people that belong to this channel. Now we can start having a conversation without having to leave Teams, without having to go to Outlook. We can start having a real conversation. We've also got the ability to do things like to-do lists straight within the Teams channel. And that quite often happens. So you send an email saying, can so-and-so please do X, Y, and Z. We've now have the ability straight within the Teams thing to do a to-do list without having to leave Teams and actually become unproductive in many instances. The other thing that you can do is surveys. Many of us have done surveys before. We may use Outlook to do surveys. What do? We typically send voting buttons and we have surveys. The thing about that is, once again, I'm leaving my workspace, and I also have no ability to look at it in real time unless I'm the author. Teams gives us the ability to do things like exactly what I spoke about, to do surveys directly within the application and not having to leave the Teams environment itself. Now, here's a video that I posted. So if I do a call, I can automatically record that call and it will automatically record to stream. So this video has been recorded to stream. Now this is where I want to show you the power of what Stream actually has to offer. So let's just pop out here. Here's the video itself. I'll just play the video very briefly. Let me turn my sound on. I'll play the video very briefly. Okay. And we'll stop that just for 1 second. Okay. Now what I want to show you is that automatically on the right-hand side, I'm getting a transcript. So the transcript's been done automatically. This is not something that somebody has typed. So you can get a full transcript of what is going on in the video. What is a little bit more important, though, is a lot of us view videos in a way where we may be looking for a keyword, or there may be something specific in the video that is important to us. What do? We grab the scroller across the bottom, and we hope we find this thing. We now have the ability to actually search within this transcript. So I know that the word OEM is in this transcript. I'm going to go and search for it. It will find it in the transcript, and now I can go directly to that point in the video where it mentions OEM. So very powerful AI that they've actually now put onto the product to actually allow us to search through content quite quickly and find what we want. They've gone one step further in that sometimes you may be interested in what an individual has to say as opposed to a word within a transcript. So let's have a look here. So if I go to people now, what it does is it automatically has a look at who is speaking where in the video. And I've got the ability to actually, this gentleman over here, to go directly to where this individual is actually speaking and actually play the video from there. So this is what Stream has to offer. It's a product that is built by default into Teams now. And as I said, when you start any video recording, you're starting a video recording of a discussion between you and another colleague, or you and many people, as in a town hall type meeting, this is the platform where the recording goes to. So that's very briefly from a Teams perspective. I want to show you one other thing. Actually, before we go there, before I show you the inline translation, the one thing I do want to show you is the tab over here. Remember I said you've got the ability to add in third-party applications or to add in Power BI reports or whatever it is. So imagine this is a certain project. I now have my team together. Everybody belongs to this. There's all my files. Remember I spoke to you guys about files and having files. My files on a central location. I don't have to leave Teams to go and do this. And the last thing I do want to show you, if it pops up, is how many other applications, so first-party Microsoft applications, third-party applications, your own developed applications, if you're doing your own Power Apps, you can actually add as a tab across the top. You can see all the different tabs there and actually be able to access that directly from within Teams. Now, hopefully I've done a good job from a demo point of view that you can see that this is a workplace where we're trying to pull everything together. The last demo that I do want to show, and let me just quickly find it for 1 second, is this demo here. So I had a colleague send me something in Hindi. And I want to translate that. Now, this is a scenario that happens quite often at Microsoft. So what I would do is I would highlight the piece of text, and this is inline translation. I'm going to go and translate it. This thing translates directly into the language that I've set my Teams for. So if I was set to a different language, it would not translate it into English, and I can translate it back. Now, what I also want to show you, something that Microsoft's prided itself on for many, many years, is disability. So people that may have a hearing disability, that may have a sight disability, Microsoft invested in a product many years ago called Shock, and we've incorporated a lot of that technology into Teams and into our other products inside of Microsoft 365. So what I do want to show you now is actually the immersive reader. So it's a screen reader, and essentially what it's going to do is it's going to have a look at the text. And the other thing that I want you to notice is from a cultural point of view, we've also paid attention to the accent of the voice when we're reading different languages. So if I were to play this, you will hopefully hear, and you guys can hopefully hear online, the English being read out. Now I'm going to stop this for just 1 second, and I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go back to the original message, which is in Hindi. Now, for those of you that are online, and you will actually be able to hear that they use a different immersive reader, and from a cultural point of view, we use a different narrator and a different voice to be a little bit more culturally sensitive. Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop that, and hope you guys all got an idea. So these are just some of the feature sets that we have within Teams, and hope I've done a good job of explaining to you exactly what Teams is. So if we look at personal productivity, this really has made a world of difference to Microsoft internally and to a lot of our partners and customers on a daily basis. And in fact, globally at the moment with some of the stuff that's going on, Teams is being used more and more. Microsoft's put some interesting offers in the market to actually enable people to be able to use Teams while we go through this work from home type scenario at the moment. Okay, so that's Teams. Let's get back to the presentation, and I'll show you. We're almost at the PowerPoint presentation, and I'll actually show you some more interesting stuff. Okay. So staying productive on the go. Now, this is also another major difference from Microsoft 4 or 5 years ago. So if you guys may be a bit longer. Anybody who's been around for quite some time and followed Microsoft, you guys would have known 10 years ago when we released a new product, be it Office or be it Windows, it was very secretive. You'd never know what features were going to be. We'd release a product every 3 years or so. We don't do that anymore. We actually release the product on the go. We are always creating new feature sets. And in fact, if you go online today, you can actually see Microsoft's major release dates, and you can see the features that are coming up. The other thing that you can do is request the feature. Now, let me let this thing play, and I'll explain it as it goes. One of the most requested features that we had is the ability to take a table that's been printed and be able to convert that. Now, I know I've done this before. I have a table. There you see the table that's been printed, and I want this thing in Excel. And in the past, I would have typed it out. What we now have, and this is within the Office mobile app, is I have the ability to take a picture, and this exists today, by the way, and it will automatically translate or automatically decode that and take it directly into Excel for us, so without you having to retype. So once again, when we talk about personal productivity, this is really what we're talking about. How do we make somebody more productive? Even if it's a simple example like that, taking something that is printed that would have maybe taken me half an hour to retype, that I can now do within 2 to 3 minutes. You can see the Teams example as well. We're giving a lot of time back. And in fact, Microsoft's research that we've done internally is we believe that we've given every employee, if you use this properly, about 8 hours back a week in productivity if you use Teams correctly. That was one of the examples. Let's have a look at some of the AI. So I mentioned artificial intelligence within personal productivity. So this one example that I'm going to show you now, won't do a demo, but the video will play, is Excel Ideas. Once again, this exists within Microsoft 365. So if you've got an Office 365 subscription or a Microsoft 365 subscription, this will already be available. Now, how many of us have had Excel data before in the past, and we just don't know how to graphically or visually represent this thing? So what we do is we go to the chart functionality, and we start looking at different charts. Is it a pie chart? Is it a bar chart? Is it a scatter graph? Whatever it may be, how does it best be represented? So we now have something in Excel called Ideas, and I'll let this thing play so we have a bit of data. I'll go to Ideas, and what AI now does, it automatically goes and has a look at the data and starts generating graphs and ideas based on the data that it is seeing. And the example that you see there is you'll actually see that it's even picked out the fact that there's 2 outliers in the data and has actually changed the graph to be a scatter plot, highlighting those 2 outliers. So this is once again how we start bringing AI into personal productivity. And think about how this would have been in the past. I would have spent, maybe not hours, but I would have spent minutes trying to figure out what the best way was to actually represent the data. We're now giving you ideas to do that. And this will sort of lead us now into the PowerPoint presentation. And I'm actually going to stop this, and I'm actually going to escape and do the demo. So let's go and let's hope this works. So we've all done this before. And I can't see hands in the room, but I hope you all have a bit of a smile. We've all had to put a PowerPoint presentation before from scratch. And typically what we would do is we'd start with what you're seeing at the moment. We'd start with a text presentation. So we'd go and bullet point things on a slide, and then we decide we actually want to bring in some images to make this thing look pretty. Okay, so personal productivity once again. So we have something called design ideas. So here's a title slide of a presentation. I have some pictures. I'm going to go and insert that picture. Okay, so I have these things already set up. So there's the picture. And watch what happens now. As I insert the picture, PowerPoint automatically goes and looks for design ideas and will actually go and bring up design ideas on the right. So let's choose this one. So there's my first title slide done. Without me having to actually physically go and do it, I'll stick the picture on the page, stick the text on the page, and design ideas will automatically go and look for me. And you'll see there's a couple of design ideas that this thing has come up with, so you can choose how you want this to look. Now, it goes a step further in that it identifies things like lists. So let's have a look at this slide 4, which is lists. So same thing, design idea goes and has a look and says, hang on, this is a list. And I know this is maybe a list that goes 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, and there's the design idea once again. Now, something like this would have taken us minutes, hours in the past to do. And let me show you one last one before I do another PowerPoint demo. So this is one of my favorite ones because I do this quite often. Say I've got 3 or 4 pictures on a single slide, and I don't know how to put it together that it looks pretty. So let's have a look at what design ideas will go and do for us. So I'm going to take all the pictures that I have here. So insert pictures. And this is going to take all of them. And I'm going to put these things on the slide. And design ideas will take a little longer. And we'll actually go and have a look through these slides and go, there's an idea for you to actually make this look quite nice and look presentable. So if we talk about personal productivity, this is a very simple demo of PowerPoint. This is within Microsoft 365, exists already. This is my stock standard PC that I use at work. You guys, if you have, as I said, if you have this, you have the ability to do it. But it comes down to personal productivity again. When we talk about the world's productivity cloud, Microsoft 365, I think it's a very good demonstration of how we're actually starting to save people money and time. I want to look at one more PowerPoint presentation because this one's always quite fun. And for this presentation, I'm going to be Mrs. Roberts for a second. So imagine I'm a science teacher, and I have a presentation on the solar system. So this presentation already doesn't look too bad, actually. So if I scroll through the presentation, it actually looks quite nice. But once again, I can get it to look even better. Now, AI is going to go through this and go through and recognize those common objects in the presentation. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to go and add a transition onto this presentation called Morph. And let's go and play this thing. And we just got to give this thing a second once it actually loads up. And have a look at the difference between the first presentation. So there you can already see the difference. So what it will now do is it will now step through the planets in a more immersive way. And same thing once again, making it a lot more professional and making it very quick to do it. So that is the last PowerPoint presentation or demo. I do want to show you one other thing around presentation skills. Now, this is something that we use quite effectively inside of Microsoft. So somebody who has an organization who does a lot of presentations. We used to at Microsoft, we used to invest quite a bit of time in presentation skills. So training our presenters how to present. We use this functionality extensively. Now, the one thing I will say that you need to have hairs on your chest because she can get quite nasty. And as you go through this, you'll hear, but it's actually a presentation coach. So I'm going to play this thing, and this is somebody that actually now goes and starts a presentation, and they want the presentation coach to help them. So we're going to start the presentation, and as you go through this, and hopefully you guys can hear this online, you'll see as the person speaks and as they use the words the presentation coach hears that and actually starts prompting you to say, don't use fillers like Now, it's terrible when you do a presentation like this because now I'm very aware that I say and it's going to become a bit weird. But you'll also see that the presentation coach has picked up the fact that you're reading the slide. And there's nothing worse going to a presentation and somebody's actually reading the slide. And it will do things like tell you that words, phrases like "you guys" may not be correct, or reading the slide may not be the right thing to do. So that's the presentation coach. Once again, exists today. You talk about saving time. You talk about saving money as an organization, sending people on presentation skills. I don't think it'll ever take it away 100%, but it does allow you as an organization to actually skill your staff up quite a bit, and you personally as well. So that sort of is the personal productivity, and I hope I've given you a sense of just what Microsoft 365 has to offer and what the personal cloud means to us and what productivity really does mean to us at the end of the day. I'm going to switch gears for a second, and I'm going to have a chat about organizational productivity. Now, this is really where it becomes quite interesting. So I spoke about the Microsoft Graph early on and how we start collecting information between what people do on a daily basis, but how they do it, who they interact with. Now, that's where organizational productivity really comes to the fore. So the first thing I want to show you guys is harnessing organizational knowledge, and that is workplace analytics. And I'm actually going to do a demo on this, and as you see this thing roll, actually let me speak through this because this is quite interesting. We do something at Microsoft called a QBU or QBR. So this is a process where we go through quarterly business review process, and you'll see that the demo that they're showing you at the moment is we can actually, as HR, as a manager, actually go and pick up the word QBR, and what it'll do is it'll actually start going through all of our emails, all of our meeting requests, and actually go and show you just how much time people have spent on things like QBR inside your organization. And this actually allows you to make some interesting changes. Now, Microsoft used to do this thing called mid-year review many years ago, which really was a review process, a mid-year review process, and we would spend hours preparing for it. Through things like workplace analytics, we actually came to learn that the man hours that were being used to create these PowerPoint presentations and reviews actually just wasn't worth the return. So we actually made use of this technology ourselves to make some cultural changes and some organizational changes. So let me actually show you. I'm going to once again go and do a very quick demo, and let's hope this works. And I'm going to start with my analytics. So these two go hand in hand. So workplace analytics is around the workplace. My analytics is around me as a person. So you will see the demo at the moment up in front of you. So every Monday morning, every Microsoft employee, and if you use this product, you also potentially get this, gets an email around my analytics. So it actually tells me what my week was like. So let's just have a look at this. So it'll actually tell me, for instance, that I spend 29 hours in the week, so it's a 40-hour week or a 50-hour week. I spent 29 hours collaborating. And that collaboration was in email and was in meetings. And how does it do this? It actually goes through your mailbox and actually allows you to do that. And focus time of 11.5 hours. So it actually says to you spent 30-odd hours actually collaborating with people, and you spent 11-odd hours focusing and actually doing potentially what you needed to do. Now, I know we all get into that situation where we have to answer the email, but we all want a bit of focus time so we can answer the email correctly. So this thing really starts helping you actually mold your day and get better at what you're doing. The other interesting thing it does, and there's a lot in this, and I won't show you everything. The other interesting thing that it does, it actually shows you who the top collaborators were for the week. So it shows you who the individuals were that you sent the most emails to, or you spent the most time with from a meeting point of view. And so it goes, and there's a lot that it actually has. And it actually comes back and it can offer you suggestions. It can offer you suggestions like you may need more focus time, as an example. So that's my analytics. It's showing me what I'm doing on a daily basis. Let's have a look at how this bubbles up from a workplace point of view. So here's workplace analytics. So now this is where Microsoft Graph really becomes important. So it's now tracking how you do things, how you spend your day. And you measure a certain subset of your employees. So in this instance, in this demo, there's 10,000 odd employees that have been measured within this control group. It shows you the amount of collaboration hours, but now it actually goes into a fair amount of detail. So let's look at the week in the life. So it now starts telling you things like you're spending 9.5 hours on email during that week, and you're spending 8.9 hours in the calendar or meeting during that week. And then it really starts having a look at some interesting stats. Here's an interesting one, after hours collaboration. So the very first thing that I will say is that Microsoft is starting to drive a culture, or we want to drive a culture of work-life balance, that people need to have a balance between life and work. I know that's always tricky, especially in today's day and age. But the one thing that we don't want our managers to do, as an example, or it's something that we're trying to stop them to do, is to send an email after hours. So I send an email to you at 8 in the evening or 9 in the evening, and there's then that expectation that an employee that reports to that manager needs to answer them by 9 in the evening or 10 in the evening, because that's just the way life is sometimes. So we're trying to stop those sorts of cultures. So once again, you can see things like workplace analytics give me the ability to start having a look at my culture inside my organization and how I actually work. Very, very interesting. So let's go back home, and I'll show you one or two others. There's the meeting overview. So it's actually going to show you hours that you spent in meeting. So this is actually quite an interesting one. So low quality meeting hours. So it actually shows you where you're meeting and what you're meeting. And in some instances, it actually also shows you whether you may have picked up a device inside your meeting. Because we have Teams on our phones, on our mobile devices, we've got the ability to check that if you were in a meeting, that you maybe weren't paying attention in the meeting. So same thing. It's not meant to be an HR tool. It's meant to be a workplace analytics tool that you can actually better yourself and your organization. The last one I do want to show you is this one here as an example, managing and coaching. So one thing that we try to do at Microsoft as well is we're trying to encourage our managers to coach the employees. So to make people better and to equip them with the tools that they need. So once again, what you can see there is an example of hours spent in coaching or in manager one-on-one situations with employees. So I think I gave you just a taste of it, but gave you an idea, hopefully, of what workplace analytics is. And when we talk about Microsoft Graph, what Microsoft Graph actually gives us, really does give us the ability to look deeply and introspectively into our organizations, what we're doing and how we can actually make changes and how we can save time or even change the culture of the organization itself. So that really is workplace analytics at the end of the day, and as well as my analytics. So let's go on to protecting the organization. Now, there's plenty that I can share with this, with you guys around this. The first thing I do want to share, and the one thing I will share on security, and JK spoke about it, was Sentinel. So this is something fairly recent from Microsoft. It is a native cloud management tool where you've got the ability to actually manage all your third-party data sources, all your applications. It gives you the ability to manage things like incidents, and as this thing plays in the background, you'll actually see the connectors, the 37 connectors. And the example that this thing looks at is it looks at a multi-attack vector. So it goes and has a look at where we've identified an attack inside the organization, and you see once it clicks on it, there's a multi-attack vector. Somebody tried to log on that shouldn't have logged on, and we also had a malicious attack from a network and IP address that we didn't like. And as you can see, it actually goes down to a point of view of actually identifying the individual that was potentially targeted. And then as this thing goes through, you'll actually see it gives us the ability to actually go and put rules in place to actually stop these sorts of attacks. So this is really just the tip of the iceberg for us. But Sentinel gives us that. It's not a product. It really is a workplace monitoring application native to the cloud that allows us to actually go and look at our organization end to end from a security point of view, and really in a couple of seconds be able to give us a security landscape and what is going on and allow us to mitigate a lot of these risks. So that really is Sentinel. I'll say a couple of things about compliance because I think this is important to us. We spoke about the productivity score. We now have the ability to do things like give compliance scores. So we've got a product called the Compliance Manager. We've mapped things like GDPR. So if you're living in Europe or even in South Africa, Microsoft's actually mapped the GDPR regulation to the Compliance Manager and actually gives us the ability to now give an organization a compliance score based on that mapping and based on how you present yourself within the organization. We are currently busy actually doing this for Poppy. That should be done in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So from a South African point of view, we'll be able to give you guys through Compliance Manager, a view of your compliance of your organization. This one I'll do a bit of a demo on. Automatic data classification. So I really, once again, just touching on the iceberg of what Microsoft 365 has to offer. But automatic data classification is something that has become key to us. So in this example, what you will see is if somebody puts in a credit card into a document, the document will automatically be classified. And I'm going to show you how that works in Teams. In fact, let me do that now quickly. So it doesn't just work on a document. You can extend this policy to Teams. So let's say I'm having a Teams conversation and by accident or I maliciously put a credit card into that conversation, we'll automatically pick that up. and you'll see that that will automatically be classified and the actual content be removed off the conversation. This happens automatically. You define these up front. So also by way of demonstration very quickly, if I come in here, let me just find it for you guys quickly. So this one has been set up as an example to look for the word confidential. So if I'm typing a document, and same as the credit card example, and I type the word confidential, you will see, if I spelled it right, you will see automatically this document is going to get, and you'll see it appear at the top of the browser there, is automatically actually going to get permissions attracted to it. So I now have restricted access, and there's only certain people that can actually view this document inside my organization when I send it out. So that's what we mean by conditional formatting, or when we actually do automated document classification. And there's a lot that you can do around this as one of the examples. So if you talk about identity, that's one thing, but we also want to make sure that we're protecting the documentation should identity fail at the end of the day. All right. Almost at the end, yeah. And we've spoken about that, and really what's next is left is next steps. So the examples that I've hopefully given you has shown you how Microsoft 365, so once again, not just Office and Windows put together, it's a bunch of product sets, a bunch of cloud services that have been put together to actually allow people to realize their digital transformation agendas as an organization. We've gone through personal productivity, and Teams is a very good example of that, even though I've showed you some PowerPoint demos. You talk about personal productivity, we want to save you time. That really is what it's about. I think the demos that I did showed you that Teams shows you that you can have everything in one place at a time. You don't have to leave it. And then when we look at organizational productivity, security is obviously critical, because if you go down, there's productivity out the window. But we've had to look at things like workplace analytics. And remember, these are just examples. It's the tip of the iceberg at the end of the day. And what I want to leave you with on the screen at the moment is there are a lot of tools, there are a lot of ROI calculators to have a look at. And then we have a fast track program. We've got a bunch of partners that actually help you, and Microsoft people that actually help you get on the right track from a security point of view. So hopefully it was useful. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to invite Grant up so that we can say goodbye together. But thank you very much for joining. Yes, that's good.
Thank you very much for joining, everyone. I think this is really interesting. Some great capabilities from Microsoft, and I learn every time I see Colin present. So thank you, Colin. Thank you very much for your time today. And please, if you've got any questions, you'd like to know more, please reach out to your account manager. Thanks for your time. Keep healthy, keep safe, and have a good day. Thank you.